better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice.
Howdy, Rob.
Hello, Matt.
All right, we've got a special May Day history episode coming at you.
That's right. In honor of our the true Labor Day, May the 1st, May Day, we are doing what all good movements, organizations should do, and get to know our enemies. And right now, our enemy is Rivers Cuomo and the 1996 Weezer album Pinkerton.
That's right.
Which I had once said was good, but now I've decided actually I hate it. I think it's overrated. And Rivers Cuomo, it was good that he went to Harvard and got sad.
A lot of problematic lyrics that we are canceling Rivers Cuomo for, and a lot of problematic emotions, including the emotion of sadness, and maybe even ennui. So I don't approve of those emotions.
Entirely too much ennui. It's just too much. You got to get together. You got it together. No, we are talking about Pinkertons, the Pinkerton Detective Agency.
Pinkerton, we never sleep.
And you might be wondering, Rob, Matt,
yeah,
this is Dungeon Master of None. Why are we talking about the Pinkerton Detective Agency on a Dungeons and Dragons podcast? And that's a good question, listener. Why are we talking about the Pinkertons, Matt?
Why indeed, Rob? Well, it's just come across the Dungeon Master of None newswire, thanks to lots of reporting, including reports by a friend of the show, Linda Codega, that, here, I'll just read the title for you, Rob. Magic, the Gathering fan, allegedly set upon by Pinkertons for unreleased cards. A YouTuber revealed dozens of cards from new set March of the Machine, The Aftermath, without realizing just how embargoed they were. The story goes on to talk about how Pinkerton agents, at the behest of Wizards of the Coast, arrived at this magic YouTuber's house, made his partner cry, forced themselves through the door, and wouldn't let him close it, generally threatening him with jail time and huge fines. A lot of things you would expect maybe from like a law enforcement agency and like a negotiating room or something like that. But no, just these are employees of a privately run business. They talk to his neighbors. Really creepy and scary stuff.
Yeah, it's goon stuff, and there's a few
true goon behavior.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about something awful here.
No,
this first time.
The bad type of goons. There's a few
They're
relevant. They're also bad. There are a few relevant pieces of information here. One is that, first and foremost, this YouTuber did not do anything illegal. They did not break any laws or do anything that deserves jail time or punishment or law enforcement involvement. If they had, then one presumes that Wizards of the Coast would have sent the cops. But because it was a simple mistake made by the distributor, I believe, there's nothing really they could do. The second thing that's worth commenting upon is that Wizards and parent company Hasbro have not admitted that these were Pinkerton agents, but they have very explicitly not said they were not Pinkerton agents. And it is worth has been revealed in the course of reporting that the head of security or the head of risk management at Hasbro is an ex-Pinkerton agent, as is one of the subsidiary VPs. So
right, Linda discovers oh yeah, they worked for the Pinkertons for 12 years before working for the Wizard and Elf game company.
Correct. So I guess we should be saying Wizards of the Coast allegedly sent Pinkerton agents, though. Is it really libelous? Could we be sued for saying a thing that's not true, that they sent Pinkerton agents? We know they sent agents. Anyway, whatever. I'm gonna say allegedly as often as I remember to, but just know that it's probably true. They have not tried very hard to deny it.
Yeah.
Now, this has been commented upon quite vigorously, and we have a lot to say about it. I have a lot to say about it, but I think that it is worth it's worth talking about who the Pinkertons are and why
who
this
are
matters.
the Pinkertons?
Pinkerton, we never sleep.
As we know, they're detectives? ?
Okay,
They
that sounds
never
cool.
sleep.
Batman's a detective, like Sherlock Holmes is a detective.
Batman's a detective. That's right.
Doesn't sound that
detectives
bad.
are cool. Their logo is a big eye. Unless you are a history nerd or much older than I am, or you're a fan of Westerns, you probably don't know a lot about the Pinkertons. And that's understandable. That's by design. They are a private security detective firm. They don't want you to know.
Move in the shadows. And like today, they're like a part of like Securitas.
Yeah, they're a subsidiary.
They're huge
Securitas,
multinational too, but they still have like thousands of employees in the U.S. and around the world.
They're international now, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So, we're gonna do like a special episode today, and we're gonna take you through the history of the Pinkerton Detective Agency.
Pinkerton, we never sleep.
Sorry, I promise I won't play that every time you say
we gotta
Pinkerton.
start building a soundboard, and Pinkerton We Never Sleep has to be like a part of it.
Absolutely.
Let's start clipping some sounds, and we can just become like the Matt and Rob Morning Dungeon Zoo, and just
Pinkerton, we never sleep.
Yeah, air horns and Pinkerton sounds, and it'll be great. So as some of you may know, I have a in-person and sometimes online lecture talk series where I drink beer and discuss elements of radical history, and I did one on the Pinkertons, and I've been thinking about revisiting it as this all unfolded. The Pinkertons have been a fascination of mine ever since I worked at a different subsidiary of Securitas once upon a time as a bicycle security guard when I was in a very, very poor place in my life and needed a paycheck. And I discovered that also on the payroll somewhere out there were Pinkertons. Anyway, I've become, ever since then, very fascinated. And so their history is very, it's robust, and it runs through American history since mid 19th century, right alongside the Pinkerton. The history of the Pinkertons is unfortunately the history of America, folks. And so I think it's important to understand sort of where they come from and a little bit of their background. So come along with me on a journey, Matt, to the past.
All right, let's hop in our time machine, and Rob, you can take us back to the beginning. Okay, Rob. So the Pinkertons, have been around for over 150 years now. Take us back to the beginning. Where do you want to start our journey?
Well, our journey starts in Glasgow, Scotland. In
great city
in 1819. It's not actually specifically Glasgow. It's the area around Glasgow, but in
great suburbs
area around Glasgow in 1819, a man named Alan J. Pinkerton was born. And Alan J. Pinkerton,
AJP,
good old AJP. His father died young. He was driven. He was self-educated, and this is funny. He was a cooper by trade. He made barrels. His pa was a cooper. So in the early 1840s, he migrated from the old country, from Scotland to Chicago around 1843, and his early life is a little fuzzy, but we know that around as early as 1844. Pinkerton worked for for abolitionist leaders in Chicago, and his home in one of the Chicago suburbs was actually a stop on the Underground Railroad.
Okay, that doesn't sound so evil. That actually sounds pretty great.
Not so bad. Pinkerton's an interesting guy, and you'll hear about he goes on a journey. But he became interested in law enforcement. And by the way, a lot of this has historical corroboration, but a lot of it is, if it sounds like myth making, it probably is. So take a lot of the anecdotes with a grain of salt, but this is what I read. So according to Pinkerton,
that happens a lot with really famous or powerful people. After they get famous and powerful, their backstory just kind of becomes perfect somehow.
Yes, it does. And there's one part of it that's coming up that I'm going to explicitly call out as being probably mythical, but it's still there. So this sounds plausible, but according to Pinkerton, or to his biographers, he became interested in criminal detective work while he was wandering through the wooded groves around Chicago, looking for trees to make barrel staves out of, because he was a cooper, where he came across a band of counterfeiters in the woods, making funny money. He observed their movements for a little while and reported them to the local sheriff, who arrested them, broke up the counterfeiting ring. He snitched. But this led to him being appointed in 1849 as the first police detective in Chicago, Cook County, Illinois. The very first, official police detective.
Cook County, one of the best and least corrupt counties in American history.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, this story does sound maybe just. It's the backstory you would write for one of your player characters. It just happened to be at the right place and the right time, and he happened to just have all the skills to be a police detective. Yeah. Okay.
It's not totally implausible, but also I'm skeptical.
I mean, it would always seem more likely that when these types of things happen, that this person has some connection to maybe the counterfeiters,
right?
Something like that.
So sorry, this is a truism about law enforcement and about crime in general, is that it doesn't really happen like the way it does on TV. Like, a lot of the time when criminals are caught, somebody's turning them in.
Someone from the inside.
Cops are not very good at their jobs. They're not doing CSI shit. They're lazy and they're bad at their jobs. If they catch a criminal, it's usually because somebody on the inside ratted them out. That's a different talk. So this was the perfect time for Pinkerton to be getting into the detective business because, as Matt mentioned, the famously not corrupt Chicago area was booming. This was a real growth time.
Butcher of the world.
This was a booming time for many American cities. Urbanization was proceeding apace, and the aldermen, mayors, city councils, policemen were really struggling to deal with the population boom and the subsequent growth in crime and public disorder. As bad as the police are today, they were comically bad in the 1850s, like truly exceptionally incompetent. I honestly actually think not a whole lot has changed, but at the time they did not even have the veneer of respectability, or we've done a lot of cop jacketing in the last 50 years to like make cops appear less like the Keystone Cops and more like the heroes of CSI Miami. But in 1850, nobody likes the cops, and they're dumb morons who can't do anything, especially in Chicago, which
smells like a business opportunity.
That's right. An opportunity ripe for disruption, Matt. Most of the time, politicians viewed these police forces, which were, again, brand new. Policing is a brand new industry, brand new
part of the state.
Part of the state. It had really not existed up until like the 1830s. Again, a whole nother thing. But politicians mostly viewed it as sort of like a tool for patronage. It was not an effective arm of law enforcement. So they hired a lot of independent agencies, like the Pinkertons. These were basically 19th century rent-a-cops. They were more loyal and reliable than public forces. And by the 1890s, the market was flooded with these. In 1892, there were 22 agencies operating out of Chicago alone. By 1918, there were 58. There were 17 in Philadelphia and 20 in New York City. So these private agencies offered two services, basically.
Okay.
There's private detectives who would investigate cases and, solve crimes, basically, and protectives, as they were called in the 19th century, who were basically private uniformed police forces. They were security guards, basically.
Okay.
Pinkerton did both. Pinkerton and his agents offered both services. They did some detecting and they did some protective work. Pinkerton, being AJP, a hustler, hard worker, got some high-profile business from the railroads by helping them track down and apprehend train robbers. Again, this is all according to Pinkerton's own account. So, I don't know if he actually ever apprehended any robbers, but he said he did, and he convinced that the railroad barons that he had done this, and he was good at this sort of thing. High-profile business from the railroads, which connected him to a railroad executive named George McClellan, who you may or may not be familiar with.
The Union's worst, one of the worst generals, and also a terrible political candidate as well.
And
so,
in 1861, 1862, the most powerful man in the U.S. military. Way to go, Union. So
it sounds like he really lucked out in his political connections there.
Yes. So if you are a skeptic about capitalism, you might notice that a lot of the most successful capitalists aren't necessarily the smartest or have the best product. They just happen to have very valuable connections or get in with the government at the right time. I will not comment on that one way or the other. You can draw your own conclusions. But Pinkerton happened
do your own research.
happened to know George McClellan right when it was an important time to do that, the Civil War. So when the Civil War began, the Pinkertons served as the head of the Union Intelligence Service. Now, during this time...
So they're spies.
They're spies. They're actually the precursor to the Secret Service.
Wow.
The Pinkertons sort of like set up the structure for that. Now...
Right, I guess we got to remember there's like... The federal government is tiny.
Is very small.
Century.
Yes,
There's
this
almost
time,
nothing.
Yeah.
This is pre-Reconstruction. The Civil War built the federal government.
There's no income tax at this point in time, right? It does not
have
no
money.
There's no money. So, okay, so here's the story that is, to my mind, dubious, but I'm going to tell you anyway.
Okay.
So, according to Pinkerton and the Pinkerton Detective Agency, during this time, there was a female Pinkerton agent named Kate Warren, who
girl boss
foiled an assassination attempt on Abraham Lincoln.
I like that guy.
Through keen detective work. So, here's the.
Oh, Rob, I remember this. This was if you go to the Pinkerton website and you watch a video called Our Story, right?
Yep.
This is like the very first thing
I think they were going to make a movie or a TV show out of this. Maybe they already did. I don't remember. Anyway, so here's what they say. Under the aliases Mrs. Cherry and Mrs. M. Barley, Warren tracked, isn't that's funny? She named herself after like agricultural products. It's I don't know. That's both clever and like, I don't know, a sufficiently intelligent counter spy would be able to be like, hang on.
Mrs. Barley. I haven't met a lot of Barleys in my time.
You say you're Mrs. Sweetcorn? Hang on, that doesn't. That sounds familiar. All right. So she tracked suspicious movement among Baltimore secessionists, and then in her undercover work, she went in the guise of a rich Southern lady visiting Baltimore with a thick Southern accent that apparently allowed Miss Warren to infiltrate secessionist social gatherings. Such as the classy Barnum's City Hotel, posing as a flirting Southern belle, and was quick to not only verify that there was a plot to assassinate Lincoln, but she developed the details of how the assassination was going to occur and foiled it.
Well, I'm glad the Pinkertons saved my favorite president from being assassinated, a thing that did not happen.
According to their history again, McClellan admired the zeal and thoroughness that Pinkerton exhibited in his railroad detective work and put him in charge of scouting operations for the Union Army during the Civil War. Here's what's funny, Matt. Pinkerton sucked at this job.
Yeah, I was just going to say the Union Army, notoriously in the early years of the war, really had the drop on the Rebs at every point.
Yeah.
Except they didn't. They got they're really bad at that kind of stuff.
Again, according to his own mythology, he's good at detective work, but he was shit at large-scale military intelligence. He did not know how to count large numbers of soldiers. He was even worse at determining their movements and, analyzing cavalry detachments and that sort of thing. So he routinely exaggerated Confederate army sizes and, worse, incorrectly predicted the enemy's intentions on many crucial occasions.
So it's not McClellan and Hooker's fault completely that they're always so fucking scared to fight the Confederates in those first 3 years.
Yes.
Damn.
McClellan, famous for failing to fight Confederates at several pivotal moments in the Civil War. We have possibly good old AJP to thank for that outcome. Like I said,
cool.
Pinkerton history is American history. Obviously, the Pinkertons also missed the most important plot, the one involving John Wilkes Booth, and failed to protect Abraham Lincoln from being assassinated.
Pinkerton, we never sleep.
That's okay. A little catastrophic failure never stopped a good capitalist from seizing an opportunity. And so after the Civil War, Pinkerton moved out west, where he could continue, or his agency moved out west, started doing work again for
A lot of money to be made out of there, free real estate, etc., etc.
Following the railroads. He decided to head out west, where again he said that he was good at hunting down train robbers, but whether or not, I actually wasn't able to find a ton of evidence that he and his agency caught a lot of them, but he had convinced the railroads that this was a thing he could do. So he pursued the Reno Gang, which carried out the first 3 peacetime train robberies in the U.S. He arrested a handful of members of the Reno Gang, but most of the money was never recovered. And ultimately what stopped the Reno Gang was a bunch of lynchings by vigilantes, like out of, I forget which town it was, but counts as a victory for the Pinkertons. They stopped the Reno Gang.
We count that as one of ours. So it sounds like what he's really good at is like building his image of his company.
Yes, he's very good at
branding,
schmoozing and PR. It was around this time that they come up with that slogan, "We never sleep."
Pinkerton, we never sleep.
He was hired by the Railroad Express companies to track the outlaw Jesse James, but he failed to capture Jesse James, and the railroad stopped financing him, and so Pinkerton continued to track James at his own expense because
I remember Jesse James was assassinated by the coward Robert Ford, according to
that's
the
correct.
2007 film. So not the Pinkertons.
Not the Pinkertons. So in 1874, 2 Pinkerton detectives and a deputy sheriff encountered the Younger brothers, who were associates of the James Younger gang. Loose associates of Jesse James. The deputy, John Younger, and 1 Pinkerton agent were killed. This was in Missouri, I think. And later, a bank was robbed by the gang, and a Pinkerton agent who was tracking them was killed. It did not stop the robbery. The next year, in 1875, Pinkerton agents tossed a bomb through the window of the house that Jesse and Frank James lived in. Jesse and Frank were not home, but their mother was, and their half-brother was. Their mother's arm was permanently crippled, and their younger half-brother was killed.
Damn.
In retaliation for this, Jesse James allegedly, we don't know if this is actually a Pinkerton agent, but he captured somebody who he claimed was a Pinkerton agent, tortured and killed them. Somebody who was working undercover at the family farmstead. And Pinkerton gave up on the chase for Jesse James.
All right, not a lot so far has really convinced me they're anything other than heavily armed, and incompetent thugs with
it's not
too many
better,
weapons
Matt.
and bombs.
It's not going to get any better.
Pinkerton Detective Agency.
Alan Pinkerton died in 1884, but he had passed the business on to his sons. And it was only growing and expanding into a lucrative new line of business, union busting. So we're going to, imagine a screen wipe. We're moving from the West to Pennsylvania,
the Keystone State for our Keystone cops.
That's right. During the mid-19th century, hard coal mining had come to dominate sort of northeastern Pennsylvania. It was the most common and productive and lucrative form. Powerful financial syndicates controlled the railroads and the coal fields, and coal companies had begun to recruit immigrants from overseas, willing to work for less than the local wages paid to American-born employees, luring them with promises of fortune-making. So around 22,000 coal miners worked in, and I think this is how you say it, Schuylkill County, Pennsylvania. 5,500 of these were children between the ages of 7 and 17 years who earned between $1 and $3 a week, separating slate from the coal.
Yikes.
Injured miners are those too old to work at the face of the coal
seam.
Thank you. Were assigned to picking slate at the breakers where the coal was crushed into a manageable size.
Sounds safe.
it is. So here's a quote. The mine owners, without one single exception, had refused over the years to install emergency exits, ventilating and pumping systems, or to make provision for sound scaffolding. In this county alone, 566 miners have been killed and 1,655 have been seriously injured over the 7 years leading up to what we're about to talk about, which is a series of strikes. So things are grim in Pennsylvania.
But this is the real, post-war wave of, early American labor organizing against,
So enter the Molly Maguires. So,
Rob, they sound a little Irish to me.
They are. So the Molly Maguires originated in Ireland, where secret societies with names such as the White Boys, because of their smocks, not because of what you're thinking, they wore white smocks. And the Peepo Day Boys. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Peepo Day.
I'm sure these were very intimidating in 19th century Ireland, but oh no,
right.
The white boys are coming for us again. Oh, those Peepo Day Boys have been messing up something fierce.
Man, the 19th century was a time you could really be like super hard with just the stupidest name of all time.
Fucking name. So the Molly Maguires were a legal self-help organization for Irish immigrants. It had its sort of roots in organizations like the Ancient Order of Hibernians, which is another, again, but it's generally accepted that the Mollies existed as a secret organization in Pennsylvania and used the AOH, the Ancient Order of Hibernians, as a front.
Okay.
They are believed to have been present in the coal fields of Pennsylvania since at least the Panic of 1873, which was
a bad one.
A bad depression, overextension, market crash, etc.
People forget that like until the Great Depression, there was like a massive recession, like every 5 or 10 years.
Every
in
5
America.
to 10 years, yeah,
It's like
without
people's
fail.
fortunes wiped out, massive unemployment.
Yeah,
really bad, all the time.
And it was always something new. This was the exciting thing. It was always like a brand new,
brand new way for this market to fail.
One of them happened. This might have been the 1873 was because like Germany stopped using silver currency or something. That's always like something insane that collapses the global market. But it's as bad as the recession cycle is now. It used to be just fucking, especially in the U.S., dramatic. Every 5 to 10 years, just a huge crash. Okay, so Franklin Gowen was president of the Philadelphia and Reading Railway and of the Philadelphia and Reading Coal and Iron Company. And in 1873, he was fully impressed with the necessity of lessening the overgrown power of the labor union and exterminating, if possible, the Molly Maguires. So, in 1874, Gowen led the other coal operators to announce a 20% pay cut across the board. That's a cabal, folks, but that didn't used to be illegal. Fun times. It's right. It's still not really illegal, but that's whatever. One thing at a time.
Real cartel behavior. Okay, cool.
The miners, in response, decided to strike in January of 1875, and Gowen brought in the Pinkertons. So, starting in 1876, members of the Mollies were accused of murder, arson, kidnapping, and other crimes, in part based on allegations by Gowen and the testimony of a Pinkerton agent, James McParland, who was Irish himself. The trusts focused entirely upon the Molly Maguires for criminal prosecution. Information passed from the Pinkerton detective intended only for the detective agency and their client, the most powerful industrialists of the region. But it was also provided to vigilantes, who ambushed and murdered miners suspected of being Molly Maguires, as well as their families.
Wow.
So in 1875, this is before Pinkerton died. Sorry, we're going a little bit back. He wrote to George Bangs, Pinkerton's general superintendent, recommending that they encourage these vigilante actions. The MMs, Molly Maguires, this is a quote from AJP, are a species of thugs. Let Lyndon get up a vigilance committee. It will not do to get many men, but let him get those who are prepared to take fearful revenge on the MMs. I think it would open the eyes of all the people, and then the MMs would meet with their just deserts.
Wow. So right there on paper, a document of him just being like, let's encourage extrajudicial violence against your
Yes.
enemies. I'll
Yes.
help you with that.
Yes.
Pinkerton Detective Agency.
He wrote it down for us all to read. So in late December of 1875, 3 men and 2 women were attacked in their home by masked men and beaten near to death. Again, as a direct response to sort of like this Pinkerton incitement to
Call
vigilante
for violence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Molly Maguire history is sometimes presented as the prosecution of an underground movement that was motivated by personal vendettas, sometimes as a struggle between organized labor and industrial forces. But it's kind of unclear because it did remain a secret society and it sort of like disappeared after this for either it merged into emerging labor movements, the forerunners of the AFL-CIO and a bunch of the other, anarchist and syndicalist unions of the 1880s and 1890s, but they kind of disappeared. It's unclear whether or not any membership in the Molly Society overlapped with legitimate union membership, and we have no way of knowing. The Pinkertons thought so, and they beat the shit out of a bunch of union members and also possibly killed a couple just for suspicion of being Molly Maguires.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a ungenerous reading towards AJP and the Pinkertons is they drummed up fear of some sort of nefarious criminal secret society as an excuse to basically break a union.
I don't want to like bludgeon people with like parallels, but some things never really change, right? And this is
Pinkerton, we never sleep.
Never really sleep.
So never really sleep. Some things remain a very effective tool in cracking down on labor movements, and one of them is this sort of like specter of a secret society of labor unrest. Anyway, the Molly Maguires are a really, really interesting group, and it's unfortunate that we don't know as much as as I would like about them. But moving on, here's some other things that the Pinkertons were up to in the late 19th century. In 1872, the Spanish government hired the Pinkertons to suppress a revolution in Cuba, which was intended to end slavery and give citizens the right to vote. The first
slavery persisted in Cuba till like the 1880s, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks to the Pinkertons for that.
Cool.
The first
really building on those abolitionist roots.
I know, right?
Pinkerton claimed. Yeah.
The first coal and iron police were established in Schuylkill County, Pennsylvania, under the supervision of the Pinkerton Detective Agency. Again, beautiful private-public partnerships happening in the 19th century. A lot of just government and industry working hand in hand to build a better tomorrow.
They're the real Raytheon, Lockheed Martin of the late 19th century.
They really are. So workers in okay, sorry, I actually don't know how it's said. In England, it's Reading. Pennsylvania people, do you say it Reading or Reading in
I think it's Reading.
In Pennsylvania? Reading? Okay, Reading, Pennsylvania. It was the third largest industrial city in the 1870s. It also broke out into sort of like a large general strike over conditions in 1877, centered around the Philadelphia and Reading railway shop. And the National Guard was called in, and they shot 16 citizens as part of this strike. Prelude to this involved work stoppage, mass marches, blocking of rail traffic, and a little bit of train yard arson, just a touch. They burned down the only railroad bridge offering connections to the west, largely to prevent the National Guard from coming in. And then the authorities called in addition to the National Guard, local police, and you guessed it, the Pinkertons to break up this strike. So
here's a real lesson for you in American labor and strike history. Usually whoever wins the strike, right, is whichever side gets the government eventually to protect them, right?
Right.
And for most of the 19th century, when the National Guard, privately hired by the government forces, the army or whatever shows up, they're almost always on the side of business.
Almost always. The only time, again, the things that we learn about, like like the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, right? Like that's, you don't learn a lot of like labor history in school, but most people learn about that. And that's because, 100 and something women burned to death because the doors were locked in a garment factory. Like that's the kind of thing that even a deeply anti-labor government cannot like fail to respond to. But most of the time they are on the other side. And I'm glad you brought that up, Matt, because we got a big one coming up. So the Amalgamated Association of Iron and Steel Workers, the AA, was an American labor union formed in 1876, and they represented a big portion of none other than Andrew Carnegie's Homestead Steelworks in Homestead, Pennsylvania, which is not very far from Pittsburgh.
It's right across the river. I actually used to live on a hill overlooking the river, and the view from my kitchen was of Homestead, Pennsylvania, right across the river from me.
Well, great. Then you're going to have a lot of context.
There's a Costco where this happened now, so.
That's very depressing.
They left up all the towers. It's actually, you can go visit the towers and
That's
stuff
cool.
like that.
So this is a good time to be in the steel business. Railroads are booming. Skyscrapers are going up. Carnegie Steel was incredibly profitable, making substantial sums from, and again, reminder about getting in good with the government. A big portion of Carnegie's wealth came from selling steel plate to the U.S. Navy. Yes, it was railroads. Yes, it was private industry. But to get rich, you need those government contracts, and you need to be selling armor for battleships.
Well, we could also say the private industry of the railroad was completely subsidized by the U.S. government, basically giving them free land in order to build railroads.
Yes.
Right. So it wasn't the same subsidies we have today, but it was essentially a direct subsidy.
It was heavily subsidized. So Carnegie was very profitable, but wages were going down, curiously. Mm-hmm. Funny how that happens. So in 1892, negotiations between AA and Carnegie broke down, and Carnegie's man on the ground, Henry Clay Frick, was instructed
real Pittsburgh heads know all-time asshole. Really just reprehensible man.
World historical shithead. Yeah, so he was tasked with breaking the Union. He set about doing that. The Union was locked out. The plant was surrounded by a fence. Towers were put up near the mill buildings, and private security, the Pinkertons, were brought in. So here's a declaration from the strike committee. The employees in the mills of Messrs. Carnegie, Phipps and Company at Homestead, Pennsylvania, have built there a town with its homes, its schools, and its churches, have for many years been faithful co-workers with the company in the business of the mill, have invested thousands of dollars in their savings in said mill, in the expectation of spending their lives in Homestead and of working in the mill during the period of their efficiency. Therefore, the committee desires to express to the public as its firm belief both the public and the employees aforesaid have equitable rights and interest in the said mill, which cannot be modified or diverted without due process of the law, that the employees have the right to continuous employment in the said mill during efficiency and good behavior without regard to religious, political, or economic opinions, or associations, and that it is against public policy and subversive of the fundamental principles of American liberty that a whole community of workers should be denied employment or suffer any other social detriment on account of membership in a church, a political party, or a trade union. That it is our duty as American citizens to resist by every legal and ordinary means the unconstitutional, anarchic, and revolutionary policy of the Carnegie Company, which seems to evince a contempt for public and private interests and a disdain for the public conscience.
Fire.
Pretty strong statement. Once upon a time, labor movement was very American and very, it had a little teeth behind it. So the statement is a clear intent to not back down. Frick's plan was to reopen the works with non-union men in July of 1892. The mill, however, it was surrounded by striking workers, and so he had to come up with a plan to get the Pinkertons onto the mill property to open up the mill. With the mill surrounded on land, they were going to, you guessed it, approach the mill by river. This was the plan. Matt probably knows all about this because I bet Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh history has, do they have plaques? Do they have like little monuments?
They've got plaques. They there's a exhibit about it at one of, spoilers, but Frick lived a great life, many mansions.
I'm gonna come back to that. The Pinkerton agents assembled at the Davis Island Dam on the Ohio River, which is about 5 miles below Pittsburgh. At 10:30 p.m. the night of July 5th, they were given Winchester rifles, placed on 2 specially equipped barges and towed upriver. So the Pinkertons attempted to land under cover of darkness at 4 a.m.
Basically, amphibious D-Day assaults
Correct.
on the
Yes.
mill that is under siege.
They had an armored, personnel carrier thing that they were going to use to tow up and disembark. A large crowd of families, however, they did a really bad job of this. So a bunch of people, including women and children, had been keeping pace with the boats as they were towed by the tug. A few shots were fired at the tug and barges, but no one was injured. The crowd tore down the barbed wire fence, and the strikers surged onto the plant grounds. When the Pinkertons tried to disembark, shots were fired. So every history I have read of this, is not able to say who shot first. It is
real chaotic scene.
Yeah.
You had families, a lot of women at this strike, throwing bottles and stuff like that. And
I do want to report that the New York Times reported that the Pinkertons fired first. I have no reason to believe one way or another. I have no evidence, but I believe the Pinkertons fired first because of just how they do things. So they fired into the crowd, killing 2 and wounding 11. The crowd responded in kind, killing 2 Pinkertons and wounding 12. This firefight continued for about 10 minutes. The strikers then huddled behind a pig and scrap iron wall in the mill yard, while the Pinkertons cut holes in the side of the barges so they could fire at the strikers. The tug left with a bunch of wounded agents, leaving the barges stranded.
I call this an initial victory for the strikers. They really...
It is.
Gave professionals what for.
Yeah, they really did. The Pinkertons were fucked. And the strikers started to build a rampart up the riverbank so they could fire down on the Pinkertons. According to reports, hundreds of women continued to crowd on the riverbank between the strikers and the agents, calling on the strikers to kill the Pinkertons. And they were right to do so.
Fucking blood!
6 miles away in Pittsburgh, thousands of steelworkers gathered in the streets listening to accounts of the attacks at Homestead. Hundreds, many of them armed, began to move toward the town to assist the strikers. So the Pinkertons are pinned down. They sent fire ships through dynamite and also just insults at the Pinkertons all day. Eventually, the Pinkertons, they straight up surrendered. They flew the white flag and they were like, we give up. We're fucking losers.
Labor 1, Pinkerton 0.
Pinkerton 0. So the workers disarmed them and they let them leave. So the Union had won briefly. Unfortunately, like Matt mentioned, after the Pinkertons failed, the state militia stepped in and they surrounded the plant and brought in strike breakers restoring production. The strikers were not able to resist Pennsylvania military the way they were the Pinkertons. And one of the biggest L's in the history of leftism, a few weeks after the...
I know what you're going to say.
I know you know. An anarchist named Alexander Berkman entered Frick's office with a revolver and a sharpened steel file. Berkman fired at Frick at point-blank range and missed twice, and then fled without killing him. Like Matt said, Frick went on to live a long and wealthy life. I gotta say,
Berkman, he was also the partner of Emma Goldman, right?
Yes. One time, he was a Russian-American anarchist and one-time partner of Emma Goldman. And man, dude, he just really fucked it up. This also this was very bad for the nascent anarchist movement in the U.S. I honestly think it would have been better if he had succeeded. It wasn't going to be good no matter what. But the reputation the anarchists had as bomb throwers and troublemakers, this didn't help. But also, he fucking failed. He should have killed Frick. Sorry. Redacted, I guess. Maybe I'll mute that. Anyway. So Pinkertons. All right. So here's the thing. Even though this went badly for the strikers, this was not great for the Pinkertons. The Pinkertons had developed a reputation among the U.S. government, which was beginning to develop a little bit of labor sympathy in some areas, because it was just a really grim time to be a worker anywhere in the world, especially in America. And the Pinkertons had been involved in a lot of these, well, massacres, for lack of a better term. And so in 1893, the U.S. Congress passed the Anti-Pinkerton Act, which was...
Pinkerton, we never sleep.
which it sounds a lot more intense than it is, but it basically limits the government's ability to hire private investigators or mercenaries directly. Now, I don't need to tell you that this did not stop the Pinkertons from being involved in further strike breaking and anti-union activities, but they're much less front and center. I will say that the Pinkertons, I don't have a ton of detail on exactly what they did at these events, but I do know that Pinkertons were present at the Pullman Porter strike. They were at the Ludlow massacre, and they were at the Battle of Blair Mountain.
All the hits, really.
All the hits. So in Ludlow specifically, they worked closely with the National Guard. So Ludlow was a massacre in...
isn't it Colorado?
It's Colorado, and it's in... and it was exactly what it sounds like. A bunch of strikers were killed by...
And their families.
And their families were killed by U.S. military and private goons. There was a machine gun involved. It's a pretty bad one. Blair Mountain also involved early aerial bombardment of striking coal miners. In Ludlow, the National Guardsmen set fire to a camp and a lot of people died. The Rockefeller family probably paid those guardsmen's wages, by the way. The New Yorker did a retrospective in 2014. 66 people died, women and children, including women and children. So basically, throughout the early 20th century, when private industry needed unions infiltrated, intimidated, or straight up busted, Pinkertons were still their guys.
Right, that sort of spying ability, super useful if you need to know what's going on among organizing workers.
Infiltration,
one guy in.
Remains a pretty consistent specialty of the Pinkertons. After the passage of the National Labor Relations Act, we're sticking forward a bit, in 1935, the La Follette Committee was formed to...
The Wagner Act for people keeping track.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The La Follette Committee was formed to figure out how to basically make things work between unions and employers. It was an attempt to... It was a squishy social democratic attempt to try to, appease labor and industry at the same time. And it investigated and published exhaustive hearings and reports on the use of industrial espionage, private police agencies, strike-breaking services, munitions and industrial warfare, and employers' associations to break strikes and disrupt legal union activities. The leader of this was Robert M. La Follette Jr., Republican and Progressive Party senator from Wisconsin. So they invested the Pinkertons, the William J. Burns International Detective Agency, the National Corporation Service, the Railway Audit and Inspection Company, and the Corporation's Auxiliary Company. These are the top 5 private investigatory firms in America in the 1930s.
Real evil sounding names, all.
they're really bad. So the committee reported that as late as 1937, by the way, and the things I'm about to describe are illegal, like explicitly so under the NLRB. Its census of working labor spies from 1933 to 1937 totaled 3,871. The Pinkertons especially had operatives in nearly every union in the country.
Jesus Christ.
The Follette Committee unfortunately didn't actually propose or affect any legislation based off of this, but it did make a lot of people very angry. Just think about that. Sorry, I would have stopped. 4,000 spies in do you know how many paid labor union organizers there are in
yeah.
the like 1930s.
Much
like,
less.
Yeah, there's
that.
just like the sheer weight that is being leveraged against labor at every point in human history, but especially American history, is staggering. The fact that we have any rights whatsoever is sometimes truly mind-boggling to me. That's just what we know about, right? That's just that the Follett community was able to prove.
Wow. I mean, I guess one positive to note in this era, because this is a pretty depressing history, is earlier I mentioned, a lot of the outcome of strikes depends on whether when the army or whatever name it's going by shows up, do they turn their rifles on the strikers or do they turn them away from the strikers and protect them? And I think a good example is like the Ford sit-down strike of, was it like 36 or 37, where the, Michigan National Guard or the militia, the government militia shows up, and instead of shooting everyone, they actually protect the workers from these industry thugs.
And again, there are moments in American history, moments of unique solidarity and of particular labor enthusiasm when the military can be counted on to stand with them. And I don't know, I like to focus on material forces, but there is an element of public relations and sympathy, right? Like the times that you see labor making strides is when they look relatable and their demands are reasonable and they're being beaten by private goons, which still happens, but unfortunately media hegemony, manufactured consent, blah, blah, blah. The modern day, we face a lot of challenges, but yeah, you have these rare moments like Matt is describing when the military shows up and they're like, no, we're not going to shoot these people who are like trying to fight for better wages and fairer working conditions. We're going to stand with them. So even though no real legislation was passed, speaking of PR, this was a bad look for the Pinkertons. This was an extremely bad time to be associated with strike breaking and this level of sort of like anti-labor, anti-union activity. And so they pivot. Pinkerton gets out of the labor business and moves to risk management. And so
this is also like just a fortuitous time to do this, because this is, after the Depression and the war, right? American business, goes global in a really big way.
Yes.
Even bigger than before.
And that does not mean that they're actually out of the labor business, but they move away from being hired goons and strike breakers to, something a little bit more sophisticated. And I don't want to say they like drop out of history. The Pinkertons are still active for the next 50 years, but they're not public for a long time. And they sort of like reemerge in the late 90s when in 1999 they are acquired by Securitas. Securitas, by the way, they're a Swedish or Swiss company. They're enormous. I think they were or are the largest private employer in the world or something like that, or they were at one point in time. Anyway, keep your eye on Securitas. When I'm playing Shadowrun and I like look at like the mega corporations in my mind, I'm always imagining one of them has emerged from something like Securitas. But anyway,
355,000 employees.
Yeah.
Insane.
Securitas acquires Pinkerton and Burns Security and a bunch of like regional security companies in the United States and starts to do their work. So this is not a secret, but as you know, the Pinkertons are still at it. In 2018, The Guardian reported that Google and Facebook have both retained Pinkerton to monitor their staff for leaks. Among other things, Pinkerton offers to send investigators to coffee shops or restaurants near a company's campus to eavesdrop on employees' conversations. Pinkerton claims that its agents typically focus on IP theft and insider trading, but you can believe what you want about that, about whether or not they have anything to do with perhaps anti-union.
I mean, I have read news articles in the last couple years about them spying or infiltrating the recent like Amazon warehouse organizing efforts and the Starbucks union campaign.
Yes. So I was getting to that, but yes, they have. So this is what they say.
Pinkerton, we never sleep.
Trust no one.
In 2018, they were hired by Frontier Communications, which was having a worker strike, and the Pinkertons claimed that the striking workers had abused them. They were very sad about how they were treated by the strikers.
Yeah, a lot of the Pinkerton history is people getting so disgusted with their evilness that they like call them names, and then
They call them lots of names. There's a great moment in, I think I mentioned this last week on the 310 to Yuma remake, where one of the bad outlaws, like, you know, kills a Pinkerton. He's like, fucking Pinkerton. I don't remember exactly what he says, but like just loathing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember this, but in, I think 2020 or 2021, a man was shot and killed in Denver, a counter protester at a BLM rally. The shooter was Matthew Doloff, and he'd been hired by the local news station Denver 7 to provide security. This man was a Pinkerton.
What?
Yes. And then let's see, last year, Vice, and this is probably what you read, last year, the year before, Vice acquired documents showing that Amazon analysts had monitored the labor and union organizing activity of their workers throughout Europe, as well as environmentalist and social justice groups on Facebook and Instagram, using Pinkerton operatives to do so, as well as to gather intelligence on warehouse workers. They maintain that this is just intelligence gathering, but
Sure.
you know,
Yeah.
you know. So
See, one of the frustrating things, and I'm sure you encountered this in putting this history together, Rob, about the history of corporations, unlike states, is that the records, they just disappear, right?
Yep.
There's usually not a corporate archive that is open to researchers, right?
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, is that between the La Follette Commission and its acquisition by Securitas, I don't want to say there's nothing, but the records are just like not there. And
it could be a real, you know, the comedian at the beginning of the Watchmen montage.
Yeah.
It's a Forrest Gump moment. They're just there at everything, doing their little evil.
Yeah, I do fantasize about something like this, about like getting access to the like corporate archives of any like major corporation, but like especially like the Pinkertons. But like just the things that you would find. But yeah, unlike a state, there's no law to compel the Pinkertons to, you know, there's no Freedom of Information Act that can require them to give over documents explaining what the fuck they've been up to for 60 years. But yeah, one has to imagine it's not good.
Yeah. Yeah, no one is expecting those documents to be uncovered, but like actually, you know, they were planting trees the whole time.
So yeah, this is it's not great.
So this brings us to the present day,
the present
right?
day, yeah.
Well, okay, I had a couple questions for you, Rob, since you've really done this deep dive on the history of the Pinkertons. Is like, I guess if you were, now that you've heard this history, like I think it, you know, really answers the question, why were people so upset when they saw that Wizards of the Coast, makers of Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering, have been not only hired the Pinkertons once, but according to reports by Linda Codega at Gizmodo, they have allegedly been working with the Pinkertons for a long time. And this is not the first time they have contracted intelligence, intimidation, or other operations to that company. So, like, why are people so upset?
I guess, like, because I have done so much research into this, I can't imagine a corporation. Here's the thing, because corporations... Sorry, I have to answer your question, I have to sort of like circle around to the idea of a corporation, because
Sure.
If the Pinkerton Detective Agency were a person, they should be in jail for eternity, right? The Pinkerton Detective Agency is responsible for the murder of dozens of people whose only crime is striking for better labor conditions. Yes, sometimes striking a little bit aggressively, but you know, the Pinkertons are there and they are violently involved in demonstrations again and again and again. And because they're a corporation and not a person, they continue to get to exist. I personally think that a just world would have some sort of mechanism for dismantling a corporation that had been involved with such monstrous behavior. So even if the Pinkertons had rebranded and were just like a fluffy, I don't know, like, white collar law firm or something, it's a bad look for any company at all to employ them to do anything whatsoever. And it's shocking and deeply upsetting to me that Hasbro / Wizards of the Coast would use this company for anything, much less, going to a Magic the Gathering YouTuber's house to intimidate and or punish him for having a pack of Magic cards. It's like it's a little hard to come up with a comparison, because like I'm having trouble thinking of a more persistent, just uniquely and consistently evil corporation that doesn't have, like, there are lots of evil corporations. Like, I think people should feel similarly perhaps about IBM, but they at least make computers. But it would be like hiring IG Farben, the German company that made Zyklon B, to like create a pesticide. Like, it's like, it doesn't matter like if they're just like a chemical company. Like, it's just very bad. Like their history is tainted, and you should not do business with the Pinkertons. The Pinkertons should not exist. I can understand Amazon or like Apple using them, but Hasbro, it's like it's like, I don't know, it's like squashing a bug with like a hydraulic press. Like, you don't need to pull out the big guns because somebody leaked Magic cards. Like, whether or not the Pinkertons currently...
it's so tiny, like, a tiny creator's YouTube channel has cards like a week early. Like, who the fuck cares, right?
Who cares?
You're not losing money. There's just like more hype. And this is going to happen from time to time. You have a large company, you distribute a lot of products. Sometimes things show up early. Like, just fix your own shit, right? Maybe figure out your distribution and mailing so you don't mail the wrong cards early, right?
It's not this dude's fault. Yeah.
It's so funny. It's like, remember like a couple years ago how every 5th edition hardcover would like accidentally release on Amazon a picture of it 3 months before they announced the title. Like, just fix your own shit instead of like punishing the people who, I don't know. It's not their fault.
It's not their fault. It's I don't know. It's unethical. It's unjust, and it's also,
it feels illegal.
Yeah.
Right.
In a just world, like, it would be illegal to send somebody to somebody's home to intimidate them because you accidentally sent them something that's not, like, that's embargoed. Like, that should be against the law.
Threaten them with harm, and I'm sure it probably is, like, maybe, I don't know, everything has to be decided in courts, but some random guy is never going to be able to sue Securitas AB, and of course everyone knows this, so this is why they can get away with forcing yourself into someone's home, saying we're gonna, I don't know, do something terrible to you.
I don't know, I don't want to make any grand pronouncements, but I like, on a personal, like, ethical level, the thought of like a penny of my money going to the Pinkerton Detective Agency fills me with a kind of loathing that I really, like, can't endure. So for the foreseeable future, I cannot see myself purchasing any Wizards of the Coast products. And we have talked about the effectiveness or not.
Thankfully, Rob, this is only the first strike against Hasbro. They haven't done anything else bad.
And maybe you might be saying, maybe, Rob, you should have done this sooner, and maybe you're right. But like, this is definitely like a line in the sand for me. And again, we could talk about the effectiveness of boycotts or whatever, and you don't have to make that decision, but like, I just cannot stomach this. This is just like beyond the pale. I do not know how the Wizards or Hasbro continues to like shoot themselves in the foot like this, but
well, they're hiring a new director of like crisis management and communications. Yeah. Maybe should have. Hopefully not someone from the Pinkerton Detective Agency, but maybe. That seems to be the type of thing they deal with now. So
that's the background of the Pinkertons.
Pinkerton, we never sleep.
They never sleep. I think this is like pretty cut and dry that they're very bad and nobody should do business with them. And if you know that someone is doing business with them, they should feel bad about that. You can make your own decisions, but I think it's pretty clear. The Pinkerton Detective Agency should be stripped for parts, its archives opened to the public, and its assets sold off, and the proceeds given to, I don't know. Is Homestead still there, or is it now just like incorporated Pennsylvania or Pittsburgh?
No, it's actually still a city in Pennsylvania, and it could use your business. There's a lot of like fun historical sites to tour there.
Go visit
a pretty
Homestead.
Good escape room. And a nice AMC movie theater, and a museum. You can go see like the site where the Homestead Grays, one of the most storied teams in the history of the Negro baseball leagues, played for many years. They have cool hats too. It does really fill me a little bit with despair, hoping there would ever be like a creators or a freelancers union for Wizards of the Coast, knowing that they've got these spies and infiltrators in their back pocket. However, the history of the Pinkertons does show us that thousands of labor unions, in fact, organized successfully and demanded better conditions and more ethical behavior from their corporate overlords, despite the Pinkertons.
Yeah,
So-
I wouldn't want to give the impression that they are smart or good or particularly effective. They are just powerful, blunt instruments. Like they're largely clowns. Like they have the same problems. No, they're
It's like they could have. I mean, this incident. If I were a Pinkerton agent, I would find some way to handle this that didn't create a PR disaster
Yes,
for the
exactly.
company that hired me.
Yeah.
Like, maybe that's a little more important than this. Not very smart.
not very smart. So yeah, hopefully that's a little encouraging. But stay tuned for more Pinkerton news as it develops.
And thanks everyone for listening. If you have any questions or thoughts or any other history deep dives that you'd like Rob to go into on occasion, drop us a line at dmofnone@gmail.com. Or if you want to hang out with some other cool dungeon masters in the Dungeon Master Union Hall, you can join us on Discord. Links in the show notes.
You can also check out our Patreon at patreon.com/dungeonmasterofnone.
Happy May Day, everyone.
Happy
and,
May Day.
solidarity.
That's right. Solidarity forever. Thanks for listening, everybody, and keep rolling them dice.
Now there once was a union maid. She never was afraid of the goons and the gangs and the company thinks and the deputy sheriff who made the raid. She went to the union hall where a meeting it was called. And when the boys come up to her, Lord, this is what you do. Oh, you can't scare me. I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union. Oh, you can't scare me. I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union till the day I die. Now this union maid was wise to the tricks of the company spies. She'd take the dare, she didn't care. She always organized the guys, and she always got her way. When she asked for better pay, she showed her card